I really feel like the next step in the economic evolution of the world is the United States dollar is going to collapse all 100-week currencies if it gets on a crypto rail. If we have stablecoin US dollars, I think that every currency other than the top dozen is going to collapse and all those countries are going to dollarize. And I think that Bitcoin is going to collapse all the weak assets. We know enemy number one, gold. Gold is just an awful monetary asset, but it's not the only one. Investment properties and timberland and, buying up natural gas rights, all the things people do to avoid putting money in a savings account that generates 0% yield. They're all choices.
A massive collapse of currencies from all over the world is going to happen. There is only one life raft, Bitcoin. That's the latest message out from Michael Saylor. In one of his interviews, Michael Saylor shared his views on the future of currency and assets, particularly in the context of the potential collapse of the United States dollar and the rise of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Saylor predicts that the cryptocurrency industry will transition from its entrepreneurial phase to an institutional phase, characterized by increased regulation and involvement from traditional financial institutions. He suggests that the comparison between Bitcoin and fiat currencies should be made in the context of their respective strengths and weaknesses. He sees Bitcoin as a superior alternative to traditional assets like gold, real estate, or investment properties, and he believes that Bitcoin will eventually replace all of these weaker assets, offering a more stable store of value. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video as Michael Saylor reveals how Bitcoin has the power to collapse all other currencies. Also guys, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy staying up to date with finance content, consider subscribing or liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind. Now here's Michael Saylor as he discusses Bitcoin and its massive economic power.
The digital transformation of currency is something that will run very fast and very hard, and the Chinese clearly are concerned about it. The way the country is concerned about it is they're going to put in place capital controls, and they're going to be regulating the currency. It happens that Bitcoin has a role because Bitcoin and the Lightning Network is a way to move digital currency, right? Even when Jack Mallers talks, right, when he's talking, he's saying, well, what people want to do is send $25 from Chicago to El Salvador, so we convert it to Bitcoin, we wire it, and we flip it back again on the other end. What they're trying to do is they're trying to move the medium of exchange at the speed of light, and that's fine. The path of least resistance is the path of is the strategy of most likely success, right? It's like, if you want to be successful, then you step back and say, what am I trying to do? Well, I'm trying to give 8 billion people the strongest currency I can with the least amount of effort. And the strongest currency is the dollar, and the least amount of effort would be to put it on some kind of lightning rail or even a centralized finance system, put it on Facebook or put it on Apple, right? The problem is just they don't go to 8 billion people. But everybody in the world wants that. And then the second thing to do is give them a property asset that they can hold as a long-term store of value. And if we focus on those two things, like, what won't we focus on? I don't think we need to topple every government in the world, nor do I think we need to rewire the accounting systems. Here's the problem with the accounting system. I've already pointed out that it is physically impossible to rewire them. For trillions of dollars, you couldn't do it. But let's say it was possible. It's still illegal, okay? Which means you have to topple the government, because the distinction between currency and property is a bright line distinction in the tax code of every nation. And the IRS determined in 2014 that Bitcoin was property and the US dollar is currency. In El Salvador, they made it possible to transfer Bitcoin without paying a tax. But in every other nation on earth, the bright line establishment is when you transfer property, you owe a tax. And that means that no rational investor would ever pay for anything with a property, and no company would be able to pay for anything with the property, because you're accelerating a taxable event. So unless you're willing to default on your taxes to your nation state, you can't use a property as a currency. You just can't. And so now you've got a simple observation. Do you simply want to give $100 trillion of dollars to everybody in the world and fix that problem? And do you want to give $100 trillion of property to everybody in the world and then improve the world? Or do you want to literally deconstruct every country and every nation state? And I think the answer is like, when you have the ability to make $100 trillion peacefully to the benefit of everybody, which is go left, that's the evolutionary strategy, and the enemy is gold. But if we just declare war on gold, it could be $100 trillion asset. I'm telling you, Bitcoin goes to $6 million a coin. And I don't know, the nation of gold, puts out an arrest warrant for us, right? What's going to happen if we declare a war on the nation of gold and we stop paying our taxes to the nation of gold, right? Nothing. And Bitcoin goes to 6 million. Or we can be in a dispute with every mayor, the FBI, the CIA, Interpol, the United States military, the EU, everybody that's a patriot, everyone that's a nationalist, every political party, every politician, every corporation, including Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, every piece of technology, every institutional structure. You could do that. And is it better? No. You're not getting any more. You're not getting any more, right? I mean, it's literally like, this is the path of least resistance. We have a technology. It's digital gold is worth $100 trillion. And this is the other approach. It's a digital currency. We want to replace nation-state currencies, and we wish everybody would do that. And I guess it's kind of a philosophical issue, but if you think about it enough, like if you were a public company CEO, go interview 500 public company CEOs and ask them if they could physically rip out their accounting systems and if they could do business with the property. And every one of them is going to say, I can't do business with the property. It's not practical, right? It's not legal. I'd be fired by my board for doing it. And here's the last point. It's like 3 people can buy $3.5 billion worth of Bitcoin and drive up MicroStrategy stock by a factor of 10 and make $10 billion for the shareholders. 3 people. Or I can have everybody quit, rip the bottom out of the company, destroy the company, lose everything, and not make the money. I mean, that one of them is the revolutionary approach, the other is the evolutionary approach. So I think it's kind of a moot point. And what's going to happen is the industry is maturing, and it's going to move from the entrepreneurial phase, which was go fast, break things. We don't have a license. This is really cool technology. Look what we can do. It's going to move to the next phase, which is the institutional phase, which is, oh man, Silvergate Bank is issuing stable coins, and I have to get an FDIC charter, or I have to come public, or I have to file this. And I think if your goal is to make the world a better place, I think the world will be a better. Instead of comparing Bitcoin to the dollar, compare the dollar to the peso. I see that. I think the false equivalence that happens all the time is people go, why would you bet? Why do you side with the dollar over Bitcoin? And the answer is, I'm not. I'm siding with the dollar over the peso, and I'm siding with Bitcoin over gold. And it just happens to be a bipolar or like a dual model. In an inflationary environment, you might say, I guess this is my theory. In an environment where you have nation states and fiat currencies, the money decomposes into currency and property. And one is an asset, one is a appreciating asset, one is a depreciating asset, and it always happens. And the only question is, what is the property and what is the currency, right? And 100 years ago, maybe the currency was whatever, and gold was the property. And then for a while, the property was sovereign debt. And then lately, before Bitcoin, the property was S&P index funds or it was real estate. And right now, the property is Bitcoin. And as long as there are governments on this earth that have the will to create their own currency, you're going to have this issue. Maybe you'll get some idealistic governments, like maybe you get the El Salvador model, but El Salvador is not even an idealist. If El Salvador was completely idealistic, they would have adopted Bitcoin and abolished the dollar, right? And you could make the other argument, which is if they had simply said Bitcoin's property and the dollar is the currency, and then they gave everybody the Shiba wallet with the Bitcoin, it would have been less disruptive to all the businesses that have to take Bitcoin. They just take stable coin on the Lightning rail.
So there's Michael Saylor sharing Bitcoin's superiority over fiat currencies and other assets. In the discussion, he talked about the role of governments in creating fiat currencies and the challenges posed by the control over monetary policy. He suggests that as long as governments continue to issue their own currencies, there will be inherent instability in the financial system. He reiterates his belief in Bitcoin as a superior store of value compared to traditional assets like gold, real estate, or sovereign debt. Saylor argues that Bitcoin's fixed supply and decentralized nature makes it an attractive long-term investment. Saylor imagines a future where countries choose Bitcoin over fiat currencies. This shift, he believes, could pave the way for a more stable and equitable economic system worldwide. Anyway guys, hope you all enjoyed today's video and that provided you with some value. I'll see you all in the next one, and as always, all the best.